Welcome to the Quincy Access Television Studios. I'm Mark Crosby. This is In Your Neighborhood. Ward 4, specifically, Ginny Ryan, Quincy City Councillor, here to tell you all about Ward 4. Virginia, Ginny, great to have you aboard at QATV. I think the last time we spoke was election night.
It was, and it's been a wild 5 months, not even. Yeah, so there's a lot going on in Ward 4.
And with that said, you have a newsletter, and I will hold this up, but in post-production, in editing, I will actually have an email version of this, because this I've already written on top of it. But this has gone out recently. This is the May newsletter. And actually, with that said, you had a little bit, let me see if I can find the actual page, but I thought it was quite amusing. Being the month of May,
yes.
What to be aware of.
No Mow May. So No Mow May is in May, you have all your pollinators out. And they'll go from clover in your grass to dandelions and collect as much, nectar or whatever it is that the bees do, so that they can have a good source of honey this fall. So I'm trying to do that on my lawn, and I'm looking at the crabgrass, and it's going to be a stretch because I'm already looking to mow it. So
well, and it's funny because this isn't the first time I heard about this. There was a gentleman that came from Orange, Massachusetts. Have you been to Orange?
No, I have not.
I didn't know it existed personally, and he presented at the Kennedy Center. He's a wizard, so he did some magic. But he said to the audience not to mow, hold back from mowing because of the pollinators.
Right. Yeah.
So anyway, that was part of your newsletter. But let's talk about the newsletter. Let's talk about the naming of the newsletter.
So one of the things that I wanted to introduce was a little bit more fun with regards to engagement in council matters and in local government. So when I created this newsletter, I thought it would be a good idea to actually have a contest with regards to the naming of the newsletter. So my original newsletter I sent out, and I asked people for input with regards to naming the newsletter. And I extended it, I believe, till the end of April with regards to naming it. And so we had about 10 to 12 input names. We had about 10 to 12 names from Ward 4 residents. And at the end of the contest, I had somebody who's totally divested of the contest and to announce a winner. And that winner, her name is Rachel Solano. And I sent out an email to her, and hopefully she'll respond to me. And the winner of the newsletter name receives a $75 gift card. And then they can also select a PTO school in Ward 4, and they also get a $75 gift card. Now, I know $75 is not a lot of money, but maybe they can get lunch for the teachers.
Sure.
Yeah,
it's a nice thought.
Something. Yeah, I wanted to, make sure that it's all inclusive,
Well, I think as a counselor, it certainly is, what I see it as, is community involvement.
Yeah. Outreach.
Outreach, absolutely.
Absolute outreach.
So let's talk about the title of the newsletter.
Yes. So the title of the newsletter is Ward 4 Bulletin, What's the 411? And I thought it was a great idea and a great name. So we did have a couple of runner-ups. There was the Blue Hills Connection, and there was the Granite Community, because we are a Granite City, and
Correct.
So those were a few of the names that were sent to me as part of the contest. And so right now with the newsletter, I have 315 subscribers.
Okay.
Which is a good start.
Sure.
But I really would like to get a lot more residents to send me a newsletter, send me an email wishing to be put on my subscriber newsletter list. And my email is vryan@quincyma.gov. So if they could send me a request, I will definitely put them on my newsletter list. And The faster the subscriber list grows, the more information they'll receive about their local government and what's going on.
Right.
And that's very important.
I believe so as well. And actually, this, as you and I were talking initially before the cameras were rolling, this program really is an extension of the newsletter.
Yes, it is.
So it's another way to get information out
Yes.
there. Let's talk about some recent community meetings.
Okay, so community meetings, let's see. So far this year, I've had 6 community meetings, which is a lot.
Yeah, right, absolutely, and it's May.
Right. The first one that I had was Town Hill Street, so that's still on the with the zoning board. They haven't made a decision on that. So the next meeting, I think, is sometime in May. I'll have to take a look at my schedule.
And what's the project there?
It's a townhouse, but Town Hill Street was the site of a former granite company.
Okay, I didn't know that.
Yes, so there is a slope on the left-hand side, and there's a retaining wall there. In front of that retaining wall are a couple of residences, so there was a concern with regards to doing work on Town Hill Street, how that would affect the retaining wall. So that was brought up because we did have that community meeting. Also, too, as I recall, there was work being done by the gas company, and Riley Brothers had to stop the work because of granite.
That was one community meeting.
Correct. And
What's
then we
next?
also had a community meeting at the Quincy the police safety building. And that was April 29th. And the discussion was traffic and TPAL. TPAL came over and they did a they did a meeting on 2 projects that are going on in West Quincy. One, which is at Stedman and Willard, which is a huge project for 48 apartments, which is going to affect traffic going through that area.
What's the address?
It's Willard at Stedman.
So it's right at the corner?
It's right at the corner. Now, when I worked a full-time job going to Boston, in the mornings, it would get backed up beyond Furnace Brook Parkway.
Okay.
And so, they really have to come up with something quite ingenious to make sure that there is not a bottleneck there. And then the other project that TPAL discussed was Riccuiti Drive. Now, both of those projects, the funds were part of a grant from the state, so that's a good thing. Riccuiti Drive is really going to be quite challenging because of, the lights that are there and trying to change some of the flow. So that is very technical to me.
Now, the light is relatively new,
Yes,
correct?
it is.
Because before the light, you felt like you were taking your life in
yeah,
your own
you were.
hands trying
Yeah.
to cross over.
Yeah, you definitely were. And there is still a little bit of bottleneck there at the UPS store there. It can get quite crowded there, so they park on the side. So I know that's been an issue too, because I've been there myself.
Okay.
So I know it's an issue. If they have a busy day, there are cars parking on the side of the building. And so I'm sure, hopefully, they'll have something to, some traffic relief on that issue too. Because it's all part of Riccuiti Drive.
Right.
Yeah.
And it's funny because that UPS store was a Mr. Tux years ago.
I remember that, yeah.
And I was in the chorus at Quincy High School, and I remember going there to get our tuxes for the performance.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
so some other community
So
meetings.
90 Columbia Street, I had the original meeting on March 18th, and there was some feedback from the residents there about traffic. So that's one of the biggest issues that I'm seeing in West Quincy right now, is because of all the projects that are going on. People are concerned about traffic. You've got the Avalon Bay apartment building, which is starting to fill up. So and now with 90 Columbia Street, it's under the MBTA Communities Act, which means that as long as they meet the specific requirements, it'll probably be approved. But we've asked them to reduce the amount of parking spots, but what they did do was they increased the parking spots to 7, and they increased the units to, no, they increased the parking spots to 31. Originally, it was 25.
But you asked for a decrease?
No, we didn't ask for a decrease. We asked for a traffic study.
Oh, okay.
So I stand corrected.
Okay.
So it's a 3-story building consisting of a child care and swim school on the first and second floors and 6 residential units on the 3rd floor, along with 25 surface parking spaces. They have increased the parking spaces to 31, but they've also increased the units to 7 instead of 6. What they did do was they reduced the footage of the swim school. So the swim school is smaller, so they're not going to have too many kids going in through the swim school. So we had a continued public hearing last night on that, and it is going to be continued till June 10th. I had asked for the public comment period to be continued to June 10th so that I can get more feedback from the residents. Now, whether or not that will change anything, I don't know.
And Bates Ave?
Oh, 46 Bates Ave, yes. Yes, 46 Bates Ave was approved. There was a meeting through zoning on Tuesday night. And, you know, it has quite a bit of history. So I think a lot of residents there were glad to see a change of ownership. The concern that I had was that in a lot of the residents there, Bates Avenue is a cut-through. And there's a lot of traffic issues there in the morning and in the evening. And there's been traffic studies there, and you know, I'm not a traffic person, so I don't know what relief can be done by the TPAL. So I would have preferred that they reduced it from 3 to 2 and reduced the number of parking spots, but I guess it was approved as it was. I couldn't go to the meeting because of a conflict, you know, because the feedback that I'm continually getting from the people who live on Bates Avenue, who live on Upton, who live on Gardner, is traffic. Traffic is the #1 issue in West Quincy. And it's going to be, you know, when you start seeing more projects come on board, you know, we're going to have to get very creative when it comes to resolving traffic issues in the neighborhood.
And this is 46 Bates Ave?
Yes.
And do you feel, working with TPAL, a lot of that comes down to lights and timing?
Lights and timing, yes, yes. And I'm sure that they might have some other ideas on their chalkboard, but they are the techie titans of TPAL, both Allie and Ed, and they do try their very best to help out the community.
And that does it that's the update for community meetings.
Yes, for now. So 6 altogether. There was, let's see, we had Town Hill, which we discussed. 1600 Crown Colony Drive. I have the community meeting on May 12th. They introduced it to the planning board on May 13th, and that is for a 55-plus community.
Okay.
And so it was well received by the people who are living at Village Drive condos. And so it's really going to be a very robust project. Yeah.
I'd like to turn now to some city council business and look at some resolves that you sponsored.
Sure.
A resolve calling for Quincy Housing Authority vacancy data to assess viability of 55-plus housing initiatives. Mm-hmm. I said that slowly because I didn't put my glasses on.
Oh. So this is in regards to the administration's intent to purchase ENC. You know, we want to make sure that we get the right demographics on the population, the senior population in Quincy. So to ensure that there is a robust need, and I'm sure that there is for the 55-plus population. So that's why we requested it. And so we haven't received the data yet because there's a lot going on with regards to current projects and budget with the city.
These are people that have lived in the city that want to continue to live in the city.
Yeah, right. The same thing with 1600 Crown Colony Drive. You know, there are people who are living here and they prefer to move to a condo where they don't have to worry about maintenance and where there's some programs within the community itself. So with the intent to purchase ENC, there's a lot of acreage there, what, 151 acres, something like that? So
It's a sizable
it is
acreage.
yes, it is a
Sizable plot.
you know. I did a review of some of the buildings in that area. It's a beautiful site, beautiful trees. And you could incorporate programs, you can incorporate 55 plus and 62 plus over. We just want to make sure that we have the right data on the demographics of the population in Quincy.
Let's turn to the other resolve, and this has to do with Quarry Hills Associates.
Yes, yes. So this has been a long time coming because of the fact that Powers and Sullivan does do an audit, but only on the financial statements that Quarry Hills provides to Powers and Sullivan. So this is more in-depth audit with regards to taking a look at the lease, making sure that Quarry Hills abides by the requirements in the lease, and with regards to the amount of funds that get sent to the city of Quincy.
And the lease was recently extended.
Yeah, that's still,
It's still in process?
yeah, it's still in process.
Up before the council was, I guess, parts of the original lease that weren't adhered to?
Mm-hmm. Last time I did an actual visit out to there, the playing fields weren't kept up and some of the soccer fields weren't kept up. And when we took a look at the lease, and the expenses that were reported, there was a line item under administrative expenses, which wasn't really very specific. You know, it just stated administrative expenses. So we want to make sure that whatever is under administrative expenses is actually part of the lease agreement. And this is just best practices when it comes to audits of agreements such as this. So that's all we're doing, is we are making sure that we are using the best practices for an audit of the lease agreement with Quarry Hills. That's all.
Before there's consideration
Yes,
for an
absolutely.
extension.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah.
I know we're just past Cleaner Greener in the city. Talk about Cleaner Greener in Ward 4.
The Ward 4 community, going to some schools and planting some new plants for the school. I know that Kylie is involved in that heavily with his Cub Scouts, and so they went down to Southwest Middle and did some plantings. Unfortunately, I could not attend and do some work with them, but I will definitely be involved in that next year.
That's my old school.
Is it Southwest Middle?
Southwest, but it wasn't Southwest, it was Sterling.
Sterling, yes.
Back in-
yeah.
back
Everybody,
in my
some
day.
people still call it Sterling.
How is the Brewers Corner area?
That's coming up. I was actually visiting QCAP the other day down there. Not
Which is
the other
right
couple
in
of
that
weeks.
area.
It's right in that area.
That intersection.
Yes, yes. So it still needs some work. I mean, Water Street, I would love to see the streets done, but you know, DPW does have a schedule that they have to adhere to based on the grading of the streets. But I like the fact that QCAP is very, very involved in the community.
And you mentioned paving. Is there a schedule of streets to be paved in Ward 4?
Yes, there is a schedule. It's always tentative. It depends on how the streets are graded. So they have a specific grading system, and don't ask me to explain it. I'm still learning all this stuff. And I did receive a spreadsheet of the streets that are supposed to have some work done on it in the area. So,
And we had a rough winter.
yes, we did.
A lot of snow,
Snow.
a lot of salt
Yeah,
put down on the
Yeah.
roads, which of course erodes.
yeah. It
The
leads
roads.
to a lot of potholes.
Right.
And there was a lot of water main breaks. Not so many in my ward, but in Ward 1 there was quite a few. You know, and you know, it's part of being in the Northeast, unfortunately.
It's a tough area. Certainly can be.
It is.
I think this winter, my wife loves it for the seasons, and I get that.
Yeah.
But some of the seasons can be brutal. This winter was probably the worst since maybe
2015.
2015. Right.
Yeah,
right.
2015 was when we had 36 inches, 3 feet in a matter of a couple of weeks in the month of February. And I looked outside my house and I swear I was living in Alaska. I think everybody felt that way.
You know, here's a funny thing that I heard, that even though we got a lot of snow this winter, it was a relatively dry snow. So people wonder why we're not up to where we should be with the water content. But that's exactly why. It was a drier snow.
Yeah, we do have still, we're in drought, you know, so hopefully that will be alleviated.
As of the taping of this program, anything else you'd like to share?
Well, we're going through budget.
Yes, we are.
So Monday night was a little hectic. We were there till 12:30, but I think all of us, most of us are new city councilors, so we're getting our feet wet on that. But we have made some progress. We were able to shave a little over to $250,000 from the budget. And what we did was we took a look of the past 5 years to see if there was any spending in specific accounts. So we have seen that there hasn't, in some instances, not all, we've seen no spending in these accounts in the past 5 years. So we were able to either reduce it or eliminate it. And some salaries were paid out of a different account. So for that account, that's why there was no activity. So, which is a good thing. So our next meeting is, city council meeting is Monday night, and Tuesday night will be budget. So we do have a schedule that we're going to adhere to as much as possible.
So as a ward councillor, what would you say is the most often talked about topic that is brought to you? Is it traffic?
It is traffic. It is traffic. And the only way to mitigate that is to make sure that the projects that are approved aren't too big, you know, because then that's going to exasperate the problem. Case in point is Avalon Bay. You know, that's like 300 units there, if I'm not mistaken.
Okay.
So that's a lot of cars that are going to be on the road.
Right.
And then on top of that, you've got 90 Columbia Street. Now that is, you know, you're going to have a lot of cars coming in and out in the morning and then coming in and out at the end of workday. So there's, you know, so we have to be creative in providing some mitigation to the traffic issue.
So I guess I ask you, what do you feel makes the city of Quincy so attractive for folks?
Well, it is still a great city, okay? There's a lot of different things to do in the city. There's a lot of different events that are going to be coming up throughout the course of the summer. And each area has, and I'm going to call it a little borough.
Sure.
We have these little boroughs where we stay in our own little borough, but there's all these different things to do. So, for instance, I'm in near O'Rourke Field. There's all sorts of nice little restaurants in the area. I can walk down Adams Street to Montilio's. I can go to the Brick and Beam. And then not too far is Quincy Commons. And they're having quite a few social events coming up this summer. So Quincy is still a happening place, and it will always be a happening place. We just need to make sure that we take care of it.
Well, one of the things I notice, and this isn't just within your ward, but often, let's say a single family house or maybe a couple of single family homes will be taken, and almost always what goes in there is larger and taller.
Yes.
Which then becomes a challenge
It does.
for traffic.
It definitely becomes a challenge. So we have to make sure that we work with the zoning board and the planning board to approve, you know, cautiously, I guess.
And I guess my other question is for those projects or recent projects that have included housing, is the vacancy rate low or is the vacancy rate?
Well, it's The vacancy rate isn't high, but there is a need for housing. I can tell you that right now.
There's a need for housing across the
Yeah.
Commonwealth.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. I mean, you just, the need for housing grows exponentially with expanded families, and we need to make sure that they're affordable too. I think that's become part of the issue,
True. As we close, anything that we haven't chatted about?
I think I've covered everything that I've been involved with so far. I would like to put out an announcement that Blue Bikes is coming to Quincy
Oh,
through
okay.
TPAL. So that is something to look forward to. I'm not that much of a biker, but I certainly will try it. And it's a grant that TPAL has received with regards to that.
So these are rentable bikes.
Yeah, yes, very, very affordable too. I'm not exactly sure of the program. I just got the general gist of it. But TPAL is very excited about it because they've been pushing that for a while. So that's the first item.
And I'm sure Quinn Cycles in the city is also
yeah.
excited about
Yeah,
that.
they are, definitely. And again, I would like to put a shout out to anybody who wants to subscribe to my newsletter to send an email to vryan@quincyma.gov.
Very good. Okay, on that note, Ginny, great show. Thank you so much
You're
for
very
sharing the
welcome.
information.
Yes.
And we'll have you back.
Okay, that
Awesome.
sounds good. Thank
And
you.
thank you at home for watching, and please remember to support Quincy Access Television for more programming just like this.